Hello, I'm Ryan Gaffin, and this is my second video log for the GLP project. I met up with Eric and discussed with him his life growing up in Israel. We had a nice conversation about our upbringings that gave me a lot of interesting insight to his culture. The pictures of us in high school we looked at were relatively similar. He had to wear a uniform to school every day, which is a requirement at some schools in America, but is much more common there. He was a little surprised when I showed him my high school yearbook photos from freshman and sophomore year because I wasn't really dressed up at all for them. I was wearing like a sweatshirt or a t-shirt for my pictures, and he said anytime he took a picture for his school, he would have to dress up a little bit at least. We concluded that picture taking in America, and really much of life in general in America, is much more casual and relaxed than life is in Israel. There are more formal regulations that are expected to be followed there, it seems. I was amazed at the little details we each noticed from something as simple as looking at pictures of each other. We discussed our typical daily routine on a school day, and they were fairly similar, although he has some more religious activities or restrictions that affect his day. We both start off pretty much the same: wake up, get dressed, eat breakfast, brush our teeth, etc., and then go to school for a while and come home. Our after-school routines are where we differed a little bit. I told him I would come home from school every day and spend the next few hours relaxing, watching TV, or playing video games. Well, he would go home every day and immediately get all of his homework done, would work out, and just it wasn't really relaxed at all. He was much more productive than me in many ways outside of school. I would usually wait until late at night to get my homework done and wouldn't be asleep until late at night, usually not before midnight at the very earliest. But he said once all his work is done, he might relax a little bit, but was usually in bed on a school night by 10 or 11, which I almost never was in bed that early. I was amazed at the similarity of our worries in high school. We both worried a lot about grades and our social lives, making friends, fitting in, etc., and obviously worried a little bit about our futures. I asked him if he was ever worried about joining the Army once he turned 18, because if he hadn't moved to America, he would have been required to enlist at 18. I always imagined that would worry me a lot if that was the case here, but he said that since it's just something every guy has to do, it's not really a concern for anyone, which I guess makes sense. He said that nobody really ever expected anything different, so it was always just kind of like, this is the way it is, and there's nothing we can really do about it, so they all just kind of deal with it. Outside of our academic lives, we enjoyed some similar activities in our free time. Both of us enjoyed playing basketball with our friends in high school. We talked about how we would both get groups of guys together, go play pickup basketball a lot on weekends. Although he had school on Sundays, and Shabbat in Israel is very different than Shabbat here, although we didn't really get into that too much. So while he had much less free time than I did during high school, we both loved playing basketball or just hanging out with friends. One thing that I found very interesting was that he said he looked forward to Shabbat dinner with his family every week, which is something that my family would never do. We rarely all eat together just because our schedules didn't really align, let alone having time every week for a formal dinner at the same time. For him, that's just like a normal thing, and many families in America eating together for dinner is a normal thing. But for me, having a set dinner time every Saturday seems impossible for my family to do, because none of us are ever available at the same time on a Saturday night. He said that these dinners were always enjoyable, and he loved spending that time with his family and just talking to them. Obviously, when we were talking about school, both of us agreed that grades were important, but we valued grades a bit differently. In America, our GPA in high school is very important for applying to college, but they don't put nearly as much emphasis on that because they don't really go to college. They go to high school until they're 16, and then most people complete another 2 years to get basically their version of a college degree. This causes their actual grades in school to be less important, but they have standardized tests at the end of every class they take, which the 2-year program schools they go to after high school use to compare students from different high schools in Israel. It's kind of like they take an ACT or SAT at the end of every class they take in high school instead of one ACT, SAT that covers everything we learn in high school in America. Discussing how our schooling experiences help us or hurt us here at MSU was fascinating. He had never really thought about how his work ethic that he had developed in Israel has allowed him to be a much better student here. He gets all his work done right away here, while I tend to put it off until the last minute, as you can probably see, since I'll probably be submitting this around 3 a.m. the night before it's due. My relaxed habits after school have led me to be more of a procrastinator with my schoolwork, which is not good for me. While he always gets his work done in a timely manner and then is productive with the rest of his day, while I sit around doing pretty much nothing all day. It really amazed me to see how the little differences in our cultures have really shaped who we are as students today. We go to the same school now and we're taking similar classes, but we live our lives completely differently just because of the cultures we were raised in. It was really fascinating to me to learn about his experiences growing up and how the school systems in the two countries were similar and different.